My name's Dave Ash. I'm one of the founding members of the Keep Our St Helier Hospital, or KOSHH campaign, and I'd like to talk to you tonight about the rapidly disappearing NHS hospital beds and why you should all be concerned about this. So there we have a graph which is based on data from 2013, and the data is from the OECD and from the Epsom and St Helier Trust. So this shows how many hospital beds are available per 1,000 people in 40 or so countries from around the world. Now, this is quite a useful yardstick for measuring what level of care is delivered in various areas. Obviously, it's not a hard and fast rule, but of course, a hospital bed is more than just a bed. Obviously, it has to be staffed. There needs to be doctors, nurses, cleaners, caterers, etc. And as you can see, well, I don't know if you can see actually, but on the left there, we've got Japan. Japan have got 13.32 beds per 1,000 people. A few bars over to the right of there, you'll see Germany. They've got 8.28 beds. And then towards the middle of the graph, you'll find Greece, who've got 4.8 beds. About 3/4 of the way along this graph, you'll find a little green bar. That's the UK. The UK, on average, has got 2.76 beds per 1,000 people. Even further along, tucked between Chile and Mexico, you'll find a little red bar that represents the number of beds per 1,000 people that we've got in this area. 2 beds per 1,000. I haven't rounded that down. 2 beds per 1,000. The catchment area is about 500,000 people, and Epsom and St Helier hospitals have around 1,000 beds. If you want to have a closer look at the graph, and I would urge you to do so, it's available on the KOSHH website, and I think it's quite shocking actually. So, has the NHS always had such a low number of beds per 1,000 people? I've had a little look at the data. So there's a graph showing the number of NHS hospital beds that there have been over the last 30 years in England. So this is not the whole UK, this is England. So as you can see, in 1987, when people were listening to Haircut 100, etc., there were nearly 300,000 hospital beds in England provided by the NHS. And as you can see there, over time, it's like a roller coaster that I really don't want to ride on, actually. So the number dropped sharply until around 2000, when it levelled off briefly, and then further sharp declines then in 2006 and again in 2011 to 2013, coincidentally around the time of the passing of the Health and Social Care Act. Today, we've got fewer than 130,000 beds available for patients. NHS beds have more than halved in the last 30 years. So population has also been growing over the same period, and we know it hasn't gone down, certainly. But again, I've had a look at the data. So I went to the Office for National Statistics website, and it's a very good website, and I was able to obtain these numbers. So that's the population over the same period, essentially, so 1987 to 2016, and fairly smooth rise there. I mean, there's a slight curve to it, but I don't think anyone would be surprised by that. So in 1987, it was around 47 million, and it's nearly 55 million today. Again, that's England, that's not the United Kingdom. But yeah, it's not a perfect straight line, but we don't see any of those radical bumps in there that we had in the bed numbers data. So, with these 2 pieces of information, we're actually able to do some calculations and work out how many NHS beds have been provided over the years per 1,000 people. And I think it makes quite interesting reading. So there's the graph showing how many NHS beds per 1,000 people there have been over the years. And you notice, obviously, a decline. At the beginning there, we had 6.29 beds per 1,000 people. So in 1987, 6.29 beds, down to today, when we've got It's about 2.7 beds per 1,000 people. And that's over the last 30 years. And we've got the same bumps where there have been drastic cuts in the number of beds there. Again, notice the bump centred around the Health and Social Care Act 2012. So, if we then combine both those sets of data, we can produce a graph showing both the trend for population growth and deliberate decisions to cut NHS beds in spite of an increasing population. And I think, again, that's quite a shocking graph because, as you can see, the population numbers are going up. And look at the number of beds. The trend there is quite obvious. We are heading down towards zero. We've heard a lot in the news recently about the crisis in the NHS. People often talk about bed blockers slowing everything down, but these graphs paint a very different picture. The hospital beds have not evaporated into thin air. They've been cut. All of this was entirely predictable. And actually, because we're talking about 30 years worth of data here, I can't really point the finger at any one political party. They're all as bad as each other. The current problems in the NHS have got very little, actually, to do with bed blockers. This is just another technique that's being used to scapegoat someone. It's someone else's fault, anyone other than the government. Well, we've had exactly that. We're always hearing about an ageing population and a growing population and migrants using the NHS, but as we've already heard, the amount of the NHS budget that is spent on health tourism is tiny. It's almost insignificant. The crisis that we are hearing reported at the moment is absolutely played for. The NHS belongs to all of us. We owe it to future generations to fight for it. The UK has already got fewer beds per 1,000 people than almost every other developed country in the world. England's NHS has fewer beds per 1,000 people than the UK average, and our area has fewer beds per 1,000 people than the English average. Hospitals in southwest London are already struggling to cope with the demand. We really can't afford to lose any of our hospital capacity. The Sustainability and Transformation Plan seeks to move many services out of hospitals and into the community. And yet, when asked, there's no evidence of any example where that has been done elsewhere in the country or the world, where that has proved to be more cost effective or to improve health outcomes. We fear that this project is actually aimed at further reducing NHS provision, is conveniently helpful to the private sector, and is very likely to endanger lives. And you don't have to take our word for it. As has already been mentioned, Dr. Tajik Hassan, who is the president of the Royal College of Emergency Medicine, posted this on their website. So, the Royal College of Emergency Medicine are extremely concerned by emerging STP proposals to close a proportion of emergency departments. And in the text, the President describes it as potentially catastrophic and says that it will put lives at risk. If we lost St Helier Hospital, the surviving hospitals in southwest London would not be able to cope. People could, and I believe will, die as a result of this closure. It could be you who is in need of life-saving medical treatment, and you might find yourself having to join the back of a queue. You owe it to yourself to fight for St Helier. Your NHS has repeatedly been found to be the most cost-effective health system in the entire world. Moves to further privatise the NHS have never improved efficiency, they have only made it less efficient. This is your hospital we're talking about, and it's your NHS. The founder of the NHS, Morden Baptist said, "The NHS will last as long as there are folk left with the faith to fight for it." We have that faith, and we need your help to fight for it. Thank you.